It is noon on April 7th, 1945. The pride of the Imperial Japanese Navy, the Battleship Yamato, and 9 escort ships is making their way to Okinawa in a last-ditch attempt to repel the Americans. Hundreds of American planes have been launched from aircraft carriers with one objective: sink the Yamato. This is the story of how the greatest battleship ever created was sunk and how it all unfolded. The operation would be called Tengo, and its mission was simple. The Yamato and her escort ships would fight their way to Okinawa, beach themselves on the island, where they would then fight as a shore emplacement. When the ships would eventually be destroyed, any remaining crew members would continue fighting on land. The ships were not given adequate fuel for a return journey. It would be a desperate and futile mission for the biggest battleship ever constructed. The Yamato, as well as her sister ship, the Musashi, was the largest, heaviest, and most powerfully armed battleship ever constructed. It was 863 feet long, and at full load, it had a displacement of nearly 72,000 tons. She was operated by a crew of roughly 3,000 men and armed with 9 massive 460mm main cannons. She was a ship designed to dominate the seas and was a technological marvel. Yet, its very existence was rooted in a strategic doctrine already rendered obsolete by the rise of air power. In March 1945, a meeting occurred with Emperor Hirohito. Japanese military leaders explained that an American invasion of Okinawa was imminent. For defense, air attacks were planned, many of them kamikaze missions. The Emperor reportedly then asked what the Navy was doing to help Okinawa. Perhaps he did not know the scale at which the IJN had been utterly diminished. Nonetheless, a plan was put into effect whereby some of the remaining Navy ships, including the Yamato, would be sent to aid in the island's defense. Many naval officers, including Vice Admiral Saiichi Ito, when first told of the mission, were hesitant to partake in such a futile action and were unwilling to carry it out. However, when told that the Emperor himself desired it, they submitted to fulfilling the mission. Unbeknownst to the Japanese, the Americans had been listening in on their radio signals and were aware of the mission. It was decided that the U.S. Fifth Fleet would attack the Yamato and her escort ships. At 1600 hours on April 6th, the battleship Yamato, under the command of Vice Admiral Saiichi Ito, the light cruiser Yohagi, and 8 escort destroyers depart Tokuyama Naval Base and begin their mission. One day later, at 11:30 hours on April 7th, 2 American TBM Mariner flying boats spot the Yamato and her escort. The Yamato unsuccessfully fires anti-aircraft shells upon the 2 flying boats, who continue to shadow them. After receiving contact reports on the Yamato's whereabouts, U.S. Navy Admiral Raymond Spruance orders Rear Admiral Morton Deo to use battleships under his command to intercept and destroy the Japanese mission. Before he can act, Vice Admiral Mark Mitscher launches a massive airstrike from his carriers without informing Spruance until the planes are well underway. Spruance was of the battleship school of thought, while Mitscher believed the aircraft carriers and aircraft were the superior weapon. This was his chance to prove his point about air power. Nearly 400 aircraft are launched, including F-4U Corsairs, F-6F Hellcats, SB-2C Helldiver dive bombers, and TBF Avenger torpedo bombers. A significant portion of the planes get lost due to weather and have to turn back. However, most continue on their mission. Around 1200 hours, Hellcats and Corsairs arrive on scene to neutralize any potential Japanese aircraft, providing air cover for the ships below. None are found. They are soon joined by the dive and torpedo bombers, who circle far above the range of anti-aircraft fire, taking a pause before beginning their attack. The plan of attack is for the Hellcats and Corsairs to approach first, strafing while releasing rockets and light bombs, causing chaos. Slightly after, the Helldivers make their dives and release their armor-piercing ordnance. Finally, while all this is happening and the Japanese crews are occupied, the important Avenger torpedo bombers can make their dangerous low-level attack runs. The first wave of American planes attack, and the Yamato unleashes her 150 anti-aircraft guns in defense. An Avenger scores a direct hit on the engine room of the Yahagi, and the ship comes to a halt. 6 more torpedoes and 12 bombs strike the Yahagi, and within 2 hours she is sunk. 2 more escorting destroyers were sunk as well. The Yamato fares okay, only taking 1 torpedo hit, as well as 2 armor-piercing bombs from Helldivers. Shortly after, the second and third waves attack, concentrating on the Yamato. This time, 15 armor-piercing bombs hit the Yamato, as well as 8 torpedoes. Extensive damage is done to the top of the ship, as well as the port side, where she begins to list, now in danger of capsizing. In a dire attempt to prevent the ship from sinking, the starboard engine and boiler rooms are counter-flooded, drowning several hundred crew members who have been given no notice. Yamato is momentarily saved from capsizing, but has greatly slowed down, making it a much easier target. More Avengers continue attacking and scoring multiple hits with torpedoes, focusing on the Yamato's rudder to disable her steering ability. Shortly after 1400 hours, Admiral Ito is informed that the ship can no longer steer. He orders the mission to be cancelled and the crew to abandon the ship. The ship is now capsizing and many of the crew are trapped. Admiral Ito retires to his cabin, and Captain Aruga ties himself to the ship. As the ship slowly sinks, the Americans continue their torpedo attacks. At 1423 hours, the Yamato blows up. This is caused by either fires from bomb hits reaching the magazines, or from shells from the main batteries sliding into the magazine as the ship listed. The destroyer Suzutsuki, despite having her bow blown off, survives and miraculously returns slowly to Japan, going in reverse the entire way. Of the 8 destroyers originally escorting the Yamato, only 3 remain in decent working order, having sustained only moderate damage. These are the Fuyutsuki, the Yukikaze, and the Hatsushimo. They rescue around 300 survivors from the Yamato, only a fraction of its original crew of roughly 3,000. Of the light cruiser Yahagi's crew of 1,000, slightly over half are rescued. Japanese survivors reported that US planes strafed survivors who were floating in the water, but it is also reported that American planes stopped their attacks when the destroyers were busy picking up survivors. Only 10 US aircraft were lost in the attack, and 12 American servicemen were killed. The news of the sinking of the Yamato was not released to the Japanese public. When informed that Operation Tengo had failed, the Emperor reportedly responded in a confused manner, asking, quote, "What about the Navy? What is the status of the fleet?" Aside from a few small vessels, the Imperial Japanese Navy had no more operational capacity. The sinking of the Yamato marked not only the end of one of history's most formidable battleships, but also symbolized the decline of an era dominated by naval supremacy. As a vessel of immense power and pride for the Imperial Japanese Navy, its destruction demonstrated the dominance of air power in naval engagements. As the largest and most powerful battleship ever built, the Yamato embodied Imperial Japanese ambition and determination to assert its place on the high seas. Yet, its destruction shows the sheer futility of Japan's situation in 1945 and the consequences of clinging to ideals that no longer aligned with the realities of the war. As the Yamato sank beneath the waves, so too did the era of Imperial Japan, leaving behind a legacy of both awe-inspiring ambition and desolation.